Hello and welcome to the Herondale Support. Blah blah blah. Great, doing
Failed
great
step
already.
one.
Failed step one. Welcome to the Herondale Boy Support Group podcast.
What is this
I'm Ginny.
podcast?
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
Allie.
I'm Melanie.
and we are here to help. I
Are
hope.
we?
After that, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I know. After the flubbed intro already. Man, failed step one. Can't believe I can't even speak today. It's
Speaking
fine.
That's gonna forebode well for what this podcast is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
An hour of talking.
so much talking and blah 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 blah.
Blah blah
it's
blah
just,
blah
it's
blah
just
blah
what's,
blah
what's
blah.
coming out today to me.
Are we the parents in like the Peanuts universe?
Womp womp
Uh,
womp 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 womp.
Man, the
Wah,
Peanuts
wah,
is really
wah.
good, you know? So,
I'm not
But is it
saying
as
that,
good as
but that's what it
VeggieTales?
sounds like.
I don't know if Peanuts, I don't know if it holds up to VeggieTales.
Why am
yet,
I
but-
here? Please. Why am I here?
Melanie is here to offer insight, but
The fact
not
that Ginny
on
had to think about that.
VeggieTales, I guess.
The fact that Ginny had to think about that.
Why is Melanie here?
Thanks, guys. Bye. Have a fun podcast without me.
No, we love you though.
Welcome to the Herondale Boy Support Group. Now only 2. We are actively losing membership.
Yeah.
One of
Is
the-
it a group
this
if
is
there's
me.
only 2 of us?
It's not a triangle.
It's not a triangle anymore.
Oh god, speaking of triangles, there's definitely some triangle stuff I bet we're talking about today.
Are they
Oh,
sitting in a
so
triangle
much.
No.
Are they sitting in a straight line? That is the 2 configurations we've decided the 3 people can sit in.
That wasn't the point. But
It
sure.
wasn't. But oh man,
How is everybody today?
I
we're
suffer.
here.
I hear though.
We're
here.
here.
Allie's not having a good time.
No, I'm
No.
not. But I'm pushing through because I love you. And I love
Let it
Bill
be on
Herondale?
recording that Allie loves me.
and
It's on recording.
it will be posted to different media platforms where you can hear Allie say that she loves Melody. Aw.
Aww.
Gross. But
I do this a lot whenever Allie says she loves me. I'm like, somebody get it recorded. I'm writing.
Somebody, yeah, keep those receipts.
it's a mutually antagonistic relationship. It's fine.
It is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But we are here to talk about some Shadowhunters.
Yeah,
So
we are. So I guess let's chat about the Shadowhunters. Enough about us, right? Anyways, we are going to be discussing chapters 11 through 15. So if you have not read chapters 11 through 15, this is your spoiler warning now before we get into all the stuff that goes down in these chapters, and of course anything that happened before that too. And Melanie is going to be kicking us off with our summary today.
Alright, so immediately we are dropped back into the scene that was unfolding at the end of the last chapter. Nate has been revealed as De Quincy's prisoner, much to Tessa's shock and horror. Will tries to summon the Enclave, but the phosphor fails, sending the room up in flames. Fortunately, this works as just good a signal, as the Enclave crash through the windows and surround the vampires. A battle ensues, while Tessa works to free Nate. During the chaos of the battle, Will bites another vampire, and De Quincy escapes into the night. Outside of De Quincy's mansion, Jem chastises Will for biting a vampire, again. Gabriel approaches, and he and Will begin to argue again, but Jem pulls Will into the carriage before he can make matters worse. After arriving back at the Institute, Nate is settled into one of the rooms while Tessa sits by his bedside. Charlotte and Brother Enoch enter the room to help Nate, but Nate is terrified. Both Brother Enoch and seemingly of the Magister. Reluctantly, Tessa agrees to let Brother Enoch help Nate. Tessa then soon finds herself in Will's room. When she sees him, he's thrashing around on the floor and is muttering something, a name. Cecily. When Tessa makes her presence known, the two share an intimate conversation and also their first kiss. The moment doesn't last, however, as Will pushes Tessa away, begging her to go, and Tessa leaves utterly confused. The next day, Tessa visits Nate, only to find Jessamine already there. She's been keeping him company. Their conversation makes it clear that Jessamine has taken a liking to Nate. Meanwhile, Will, Jem, and Charlotte are arguing about Nate's care, whether and how he should stay in the Institute while he recovers, and how to get information from him. While Will suggests the Silent Brothers search through his mind, Charlotte remains steadfastly against this, as the process is difficult for mundanes. Tessa overhears the conversation and angrily lashes out before storming out. Jem, following her, suggests Tessa allow him to take her to his favorite place, and she agrees. As the pair stroll through the streets of London, Jem teaches Tessa to see through glamours. Finally, they reach Jem's favorite place, Blackfriars Bridge. We learn about how Will came to the Institute as Jem recounts the story Charlotte told him of his arrival. When the two attempt to leave, however, they are blocked by a young couple. Tessa recognizes the man as the coachman that worked for the Dark Sisters. The coachman relays a message on behalf of the Magister, a declaration of war. Jem attacks the couple only to find that under their skin is neither flesh nor blood. Instead, metal is in their place. He successfully fends them off, only to see dozens more at the end of the bridge, fast approaching. The two manage to escape, making it to the Institute doors just before Jem collapses. Tessa tries her best to protect Jem, but it's not enough. Luckily, the doors open just in time, and Charlotte, Henry, and Will come out to attack the creatures. When Jem wakes, he tells Tessa the story of his family and exactly how he became Will, how a demon, Yan Luo, captured him and his family and tortured them for days. As a result, Jem became addicted to whatever it was the demon had poisoned him with. That night, Tessa is awoken by Sophie, who has news to deliver. Nate's gone missing.
Dun, dun, dun!
Nate has only been here for how long, and he is already causing problems?
He's been at the
Please.
Institute for maybe a whole day.
Exactly.
This is why we can't miss
Nate,
things.
please.
Nate.
Our last cliffhanger was a Nate thing. It was when
It
we
was.
figured out that Nate was
Nate's-
like, so in
Nate's-
5 chapters,
yeah.
Nate has been in bed, but he is causing problems at the end of part
He's
2
been
and part 3.
kind of, I don't know what the word, not immobile, but like out of commission, and yet he's
Yeah.
still causing problems.
Yep. Ugh.
I will say we've been good. We literally sat down this book. We were like, okay, 4 parts, or 20 chapters, 5, 5, 5. We've found some great cliffhangers at the end of these 5 chapters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Cassie Clare.
Thanks for making this an excellent podcast format. So,
For sure. Oh man.
All right.
Yeah, a
who-
lot happened there.
Yeah.
We started
there's
off with
a lot
some
going on in the
arson.
summary.
always
Which
Still
is
do
always an
stuff with
option.
arson. We love arson here, you know, as an option.
one of
Having a
my-
bad day, arson.
You know, just I like the consistency in that across all vampire lore, fire is always something that can kill them. Like, you know, there's different ways that you become vampires, but fire is always like, this is how you kill a vampire.
That's
Nice.
fair, I guess. There, yeah, and
It's got
when,
really
so when
nothing
you're
to
reading
do
your
with
summary
with
too.
the book, with the Shadowhunters themselves, but I just thought that was like, oh.
Yeah, when
think
you
it's
were
interesting-
reading your, go ahead.
I think it's interesting how vampires can't say God. I think that's an interesting
Mhm.
take on vampire lore in the Cassie Clare
That's true.
world.
It is.
Um,
And oh, go ahead, Jenny.
I was just saying that like in your summary alone, you said like again a few times within the span of a few, and I was like, the fact that we had to say that Will's doing these things again, Will is biting vampires again, Will is arguing
Let's
with
get
Gabriel
right
again.
into
I'm
that
just
then,
like,
because
man,
Will
Will
has
has a
to
problem.
chastise Jem for biting a vampire again, meaning this isn't the first time he's done it.
Will
Oh,
is
yeah.
a problem.
Will is a problem, and
Hence,
Yeah.
support.
this is why we need
I
Will.
mean,
Support.
he's definitely a
This is
problem.
why. This is why.
Drop the mic.
Exactly. Will is such a problem.
As Jem calls him, a disloyal bastard.
He is. But like,
Will calls Jem a disloyal bastard.
Oh, that's what it is. Sorry.
oh yeah. Reverse.
Still,
Jem does
Will
have
is
some
that.
interesting things to say on the topic of Will when he and Tessa are on. Is it while they're on the bridge or is it while they're in the room? But there's a point where Jem and Tessa are talking about Will specifically.
Just remember, let me see if I.
Right. You're right. I think
I believe it is. Oh gosh.
Nobody
I
remembers
did-
on this.
man, I
No,
so my
I
notes
did. I
for this
did. I
part
know
were
I
a little
did.
rough. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just like I just like wrote
Okay.
down the page. I was like, interesting conversation.
I was looking for my note about Blackfriars Bridge because I wanted to. It's after they get to the bridge.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to look for where I wrote down Blackfriars Bridge was the problem.
Do we want to tackle Blackfire's Bridge at this point, or do we want to try and hit like the vampire situation?
I
that's
think
happening?
Let's
let's
maybe
hit
hit
the
the vampire situation. We'll
yeah.
go in order.
There's a lot happening there too. Yeah.
Try to not jump around as much today.
We're very good at jumping around.
We're so
Right.
good at that. Which I mean, we're a loose format podcast, but all the same. Let's see.
Loose chronological
So,
order.
just,
Yeah.
battle shenanigans. Will bites a vampire.
So how
Phosphor
did we end up
falls.
on fire? The phosphor doesn't work. Henry's
Yeah.
invention.
And
that
Henry is not
Charlotte
on
went to
fire,
bed.
but Henry's
I
invention
wrote
is
this
on
down in my
fire.
notes. I wrote
Yeah.
this down in my notes, and I said I would give Henry's device malfunctioning and setting everything on fire an honorary point to the Henry sets himself on fire counter.
I agree with
Just
that.
because.
I think
I
that's
agree.
an honorary +1.
Well, yeah, we'll add
Fire caused
Because
by
it sets
Henry
everybody
counts.
else on fire.
fire caused by Henry. It's true. Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody else is on fire because of Henry.
So,
But
honorary
last section we
+1.
talked about Charlotte going to bat for Henry and insisting that this invention would work. And then when the moment
it
comes,
doesn't.
it doesn't.
Yes, it didn't work, but it still did the job. So, like,
It did do the job, but the fact that it failed is definitely
Yeah.
I had it in a moment where I was like, oof. Because I remember...
it's
the
going to cause
fringe
problems, but
Charlotte.
hey, at least it still did something that worked.
It did. At least it didn't do nothing. But
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. It's a mixed bag there because it's definitely it got the job done, but like, yeah, it caused
also,
mass panic
so many
and
problems.
this whole place.
Speaking
is on
of causing
fire.
mass panic, I get that it's Nate, and I know that's Tessa's brother, but girl, you're causing more problems and danger for everybody by screaming and refusing to leave.
Yeah, she does that. She does.
I know it's her brother. I know she's been searching for him.
Yeah, I
But
had to
you're
also like
just-
think about that and like try to give Tessa some grace, but I was also just like, really, Tessa? So it's a mixed bag of trying to be like, oh yeah, this is her one family member that she like came over here for and she's been looking for, but also, please,
it's like, my girl, you
You
know
had
you
this
were
whole
not
plan, and
capable.
now it's basically out the window.
Because
right?
now they have to work on saving your ass as well as saving Nate's
Not
ass.
only does that put Tessa and the Shadowhunters in danger, it puts Camille in danger.
It does.
Yeah.
Because
Which-
De Quincy escapes after all
Yeah.
of this shit. Camille was
And
so
we
confident.
learn that Camille has to go into hiding because of it.
Yeah, Camille was convinced and
She
allowed
does.
this plan to happen because she did not think that anyone was going to survive. But because of mass chaos, De Quincy was able to escape, which puts her in a position of danger, which makes Magnus mad at the Shadowhunters too.
Because
Yeah.
let's not forget, Camille and Magnus are lovers.
Lovers. Ooh.
Ooh.
Which, like,
Spicy.
good for them. And this whole Camille thing is really interesting just because, like, we've seen Tessa's powers, at work, but, like, only in small spurts before this.
Mhm.
Like, those little examples they gave us in the beginning when she's, like, trying to discover her power and figure it out. But, like, Camille's hold is, like, really strong on Tessa.
She has
like,
this moment where
when-
she's, like,
in this-
possessed by Camille when
Yeah,
yeah.
confronting De Quincy. And she says, like, it's not
Speaking-
me, but it's Camille who, and, like, Camille, she's holding, there's a pistol, which Will grabs and starts to use. And I'm like, hee hee, and have, like, a little thought about future books. But then it gets tossed to Tessa, and then Tessa immediately is, like, pointing it at De Quincy, and she's like, well, I don't know how to shoot a gun, upon reflecting later. She's like, it must have been, like, Camille knew all these things and whatnot, and yeah, it's, like, a very...
And that's another look at how Tessa's power is evolving.
Right.
Because she was not able to do that before.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're slowly learning more about how this weird warlock power is working.
There's not
then-
quite a definition of, like, what
Yeah.
exactly, we're just getting bits and pieces.
And then on the other side of the battle, there's Will, as we talked about, biting vampires. But I just love his energy where he's just like, come and get me.
Will is a problem. That is the recurring theme
He
amongst all
has
of
a death
these books.
wish. He has a
He
death
does,
wish.
which is interesting to
He
explore
does,
later.
actually.
But actually.
Something to keep in mind.
So along the
just, like-
lines of things that we know about that, like, if you haven't read the rest of the series, you might not know about, but Will is throwing knives in this scene too, and I was like, emotions.
Oh.
I don't
I see.
remember what that's in reference to, but I'm sure I'll remember later.
Yes. I can also text you.
I didn't pick up on that one, but that's good. That's good.
Babies.
We also learn
Uh,
about Thomas. We're
Yeah.
getting a lot of character backstory in these chapters.
We get a lot of information.
Yeah.
Will and
They're-
Thomas, the ship that never took off, but could have
Right?
been.
You would.
You're
You
right.
would.
You're right.
I am not wrong.
Yeah, I marked
And
that down
then-
too. I was just like,
But also,
interesting.
like, I would think
They
you
were
would think that
friends.
way about Gabe and
Mhm.
Will. I'm surprised you don't think that about Gabe and Will, because they're classic enemies to lovers.
Well, Gabe is fucking annoying, so there's that.
Because they get
I was
into
just
it
like,
again.
Listen, I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I'm just saying that Gabe is really annoying.
Will and
Jem-
Gabe are the same
not Jem,
person,
oh my god,
honestly.
Will.
They
and
are the same
Gabriel.
person.
They get into it again. And Gabriel says something very interesting regarding Jem.
What did he say?
I don't have that written down.
I didn't.
He
write it down.
basically says that Will shouldn't make jokes about opium considering Jem's condition.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ah, yes,
So-
Jem's condition.
We'll learn a little bit more about Jem's condition, as we, said in the summary a little bit later on, but it's something that seems to be that pretty much every Shadowhunter knows about Jem and his condition.
Which, like, God, it must suck living that way. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
having something wrong with you and, like, it's everybody's business. Like, that's really shitty. And, like, obviously there are visible changes to him because of this dependence upon
Mm-hmm.
the drug. But,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, more on that later. But I do have thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I have in my notes, like a true man of science, Henry beats the manacles open until they bend to his will. And I was like,
What a king.
yes, as
Again,
do.
we love Henry.
We do. It's got like the hitting the computer when it's not working energy, Like
Oh, yeah. Let's punch it.
Exactly.
If I smack it enough, it'll turn on.
Exactly.
You're right. I
Yes.
marked down that when we were talking about like Will and Thomas that they were friends before Jem came along, and I was like,
They were.
and then they like stopped being friends,
Or at least
like, they
as
just
close.
fizzled out.
Right. Which, knowing what we know about Will makes sense, but also
It does.
it's sad, and you see that Thomas has like a little bit of sadness about it, and like
But he just accepts it and just doesn't make a big fuss or a big deal out of it. But it's a little sad.
Thomas is good people.
Thomas is
Yeah.
good.
Also, just after the battle and when they're heading back to the Institute, Jem and Will are in a carriage, and Jem's like, dude, I know you think Tessa's pretty. Like, I know you like Tessa. And
Which is
Will's like,
interesting.
and Will's like, what? I never said that. And Jem's like, it's freaking obvious on your face. And Will's like, yeah, well, the same can be said about you.
Yeah, so we get this interesting
triangle
bit.
time.
Triangle.
Triangles. I told you we would talk about it.
So we get this is kind of our first clue that Jem has feelings for Tessa, because again, we haven't seen a lot of them interacting yet. Like, we're 15 chapters in and we have like 2 notable scenes where Jem and Tessa are interacting on their own.
Yeah. And I made a note too. I'm just like, I feel like in those scenes, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like those scenes, like the scene right after that was also like Will was back, and I was like,
Yeah, so I have
Jem does not like. I wrote down. I was like, does Jem get to stand on his own as an ally, like as a love interest, like
right.
like Tessa and Will scene is immediately after this Tessa
I feel
and
like
Jem
he does
scene.
in later books,
some
but
point.
I don't remember.
So I
Right.
have this specific note where I said Tessa is talking to Jem and is thinking about how Will is leaving.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Point.
And like there are just there's scenes. There's a couple scenes. So I remember distinctly the first scene that we meet Jem. Right, we talked
Mhm.
about in our first,
First podcast.
was it the first one or does he come in chapter like?
Oh, he
He
might
does
be
come in
coming
at
in
the
like
end.
chapter 6, so it might be the second podcast.
Chapter
It might have been last
So,
one.
anyways, whenever we talked about that, how they have their like, he's playing the violin, the whole scene of the
Will?
how that
that you?
happens is his intro scene, and then it's just like, and like Will interrupts that scene at the end, like he
Mhm.
comes in the room or whatever,
Speaking
and then
of,
like Will like there's another scene like at the end of this, which we'll get to that whole thing, but he comes in again, and I'm just like,
And that's where my note
Yeah.
is
did we
written.
ever get a scene? Yeah. Which,
speaking
again, I understand
us-
this book maybe not, but
right, speaking of us seeing, Jem and his feeling for Tessa, I have this sort of passage written down. There was something about the way Jem looked at her, she thought. like he could see into and through her, but nothing inside her, nothing he saw or heard could bother or upset or disappoint him. So that's a little bit of like seeing how Jem views Tessa in that, it's the kind of trope of, I don't know if it's a trope necessarily, but the idea of you love everything about this person no matter what they do.
Yeah.
So I think Jem, in his earnesty, views everyone very much that way.
Mm-hmm.
Jem is a very honest and a very forthright and a very forgiving person. Like, we see that in the way he interacts with Will. When they're talking about Will, he mentions that, like, well, I don't need to know his motivations. It's like, I know these things about him, and if there's reasons that if he wanted me to know these things, he would tell me these things. And, like, I've stopped. So he's very earnest. That's the word for him. And I think that's Tessa realizing this about his character, and that Jem is the least judgmental person. Like, he doesn't get into it with Gabriel. He just kind of is there to mediate.
He's there to stir the pot sometimes.
But it's also Jem's like, I know I'm dying.
Yeah.
Which, also speaking of him knowing him dying, I also wrote down, he has this his mouth like twitches when Tessa mentions that it's not worth living a long time if you're going to look like that regarding a silent brother.
I had new insight thinking about that. I
won't get into it too much, but I'm just like, I'm more going to focus on the fact that, like, it's not worth living a long time, and it's just like, Jem doesn't have, much longer. We don't know how much longer Jem has, so he's kind of just like, but isn't it worth it to be alive if you can be, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that becomes a lot of Jem's arc, is like, what is surviving versus thriving, and what is the definition of truly living.
I don't know that I would know that. I don't have an answer to that.
Exactly.
As millennials, we are all surviving
anyway,
and none of us are thriving, but
it's fine. That's why I suffer. It's fine.
So
continuing on romantic things, Will and Tessa's kiss.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's the thing. That scene is right after this. Like, the scene is the scene comes right after that. Is the thing. Like,
it does.
Because Tessa and Jem have this like conversation, and then she's like, "How's Will doing?" Or Sophie comes out and is like, "Will's not taking his medicine or whatever." And then...
She runs into Sophie first.
Yeah.
And Sophie's like, "He's not taking it," and Tessa's like, "I'll do it.
I'm gonna do it."
And I wrote down what she says here. I wrote down either what she says or what she thinks, and I was like, yes. She's like, Will Herondale needs to learn to take his medicine like a man. And I was like, okay, Tessa.
Smack him.
All right.
I just was like, okay, sometimes I like you.
Will needs someone to talk shit to him. It's fine. He deserves it.
But yes, back to their first kiss.
Listen, this was a hot, steamy moment that little teen Tweety Bopper Allie was just like, reads once, reads twice, reads a third time, takes Clockwork Angel off the shelf, opens up to the page. Listen, I'm just saying. It was steamy by YA standards. It's like, it's good. Good content. Just saying.
But then it all goes downhill.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. I wrote down oh no, he's hot. Like,
well, he's up there in the attic. He's in like this puddle of like blood and water. He's in this white shirt that's wet and damp. And his curls are like plastered to his forehead. And just like...
I just realized something. Did Ginny just make a SpongeBob reference?
I don't know. Is that a SpongeBob reference?
Yes.
What's a SpongeBob reference?
I will send it to you later, Ginny.
Oh, okay.
It's a meme.
Yeah,
it's a SpongeBob meme.
I just
thought it was like a meme. I just thought the meme was
it's a SpongeBob meme. The Squidward meme.
Oh no, he's hot. Like, is that a Squidward meme?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh. I just thought it was like a general meme.
I've only seen it as Squidward. Keep going. I'm gonna look this up.
Derailing the conversation. It's fine. But yeah, I was just like, that's what I wrote down. And I drew the little eye emoji and then like the shocked Pikachu emoji in my notes here, because I was like, because Tessa's having the horny thoughts here of like,
Tessa's having the horny.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly.
I am sending this to you guys right now.
Which, like, same. I would, yeah. I understand, Tessa. I get it. Okay, awaiting the meme.
And I had forgotten, because this is a reread for all of us, but I had forgotten that they kissed here, because I was just like, oh, look, Tessa's feeling the the tension, and then they did smooch, and I was like, oh my.
Smooch.
I can't get over the fact that Ginny unintentionally made a SpongeBob reference without even knowing it. Because that's not something Ginny does.
Ginny does not make SpongeBob reference, only VeggieTales.
Yeah.
Where were we?
But back to
The smooching.
No, I'm the one who got us off track this time. Anyway.
Tessa, like, my first kiss tasted of holy water and
Holy
blood.
water and blood.
Right?
My first kiss did not taste like holy water and blood, for the record.
Nor did mine.
Nah.
But she's like, of all the ways I imagined this going, it was not like that.
Right.
Tessa out here really setting the bar in a certain place.
And then after the fact, she's like, drowning Will might be a good idea.
Which,
Right?
maybe that would solve so many problems.
We just get rid of the man.
It's something
Maybe
to
throw
think
the
about
man
is
out.
why exactly does Will push Tessa away? Because he's the one who initiated this whole thing. He's the one who I guess kissed her first is the way to say it.
There's also a difference in his emotional tone at that point too. He is desperate and he is begging her to leave.
Exactly.
Which is not
So
a very
he's had
Will-like thing.
He's had this shift, and we have, at the time, at this moment, no idea what's going on.
Right.
But just before their kiss, I think it's important to mention when he was thrashing around because of the vampire blood, whatever, and the holy water, he mutters a name, Cicely. And there's no elaboration, nothing. We have no idea who that is.
I have no idea who Cecily is.
No idea.
Don't know. Wouldn't have
Not
a clue. But obviously, if he's saying this name in a state of in a
delirium.
I don't know if he's delirium, yeah. It's gotta be important. I wonder who that is.
I wonder who that could be. I have
That's also wonders who that
clue.
is. Like
Oh, yeah.
another woman?
Another woman?
Oh
A
god.
woman who is not me. I am the love interest. Everyone's supposed to love me.
I am the main character.
If we want to go, do we want to go back to other stuff, or do we want to keep talking about Will? Because we might be able to talk about Will a little more. I'm not sure though.
I mean, technically, this whole podcast is kind of
about whatever we want.
Talk about. Is to talk about Will.
We can go back. I thought it was important to mention that whenever they're talking to Nate in the beginning of chapter 12, and when they have him, at the institute, blah blah blah, he's mentioning the Magister, but he never mentions the Magister by name.
He never confirms it's De Quincy. Every time Nate says the Magister, Tessa goes De Quincy, and then Nate
and he never
tops.
says De Quincy. He never
right.
Which I think is important to note because they're assuming it's De Quincy, but there's no confirmation on that.
Nope.
We're gonna see that later too.
Yeah, this twist happens 3 or 4 times where someone says the Magister, and then someone goes De Quincy, and then it's dropped. And there's no
just
confirmation.
nobody says anything else. Right.
So, interesting. Something to think about.
Who is the Magister? Will the real Magister please stand up?
Oh, gosh.
Ginny got the memes today.
She does. We also, when Tessa goes back to check in on Nate, we see that Jessie is already there.
Oh, we do.
Oh, Jessie.
And I have thoughts about this that I cannot share at the moment.
Oh, alright.
Because it's spoiler territory.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're starting to see some of Jessie's interest, and we know that Jessie wants a normal life. She wants the mundane life, and she knows that Nate's a mundane. She sees this hot mundane being dragged into the institute, and she's like, who dat? And she speaks. She's I'm speaking to him. It's and he's going to wake up, and he's going to fall in love with me because I've been taking care of him, and that's how all the stories work. So she very much has her sights set on
My
him.
Jessie. My girl. My heart goes out to you. I do love, though, that, yes, she's mainly interested in Nate because he's a mundane and she can marry him, but she does specifically state to Tessa that she doesn't care if he has money.
That's true.
Which I think is nice, even though it's kind of...
Jessie also has money, though. So.
Right.
Yeah, Jessie has money, that's her.
Jessie has money for the
I don't need it, I have money.
But it's just
Exactly.
would she, if she didn't have money, do you think she would still care?
I think
it's more about her wanting out of the life of a Shadowhunter than anything.
Right. So I think that she would still care. Because
the thing
of
is,
that.
Because it's still society.
With the society, it's still the man has the power. In normal society, that's how it is. Because Tessa makes this point of but I thought, or she didn't make the point, but like Jesse said something about, or there's something about like, well, Jesse had originally said something like, oh, well, maybe we'll pretend that we're cousins and we'll go off and get a house on our own and
So
blah,
this
blah, blah.
is the thing
And
that
then-
I texted Allie last night that I was like, this is something I think Allie's gonna have an opinion about. Tessa's talking about, didn't you say like we would live together or whatever, like something about marrying Tessa and Jesse's like, oh, she says something like, well, a man is always better than a woman for this sort of thing, don't you think? And
No, I don't think.
and I was like, I think Allie would strongly disagree.
Hard pass. Strong disagree.
Yeah.
The missing
was the thing-
context is that I'm a lesbian. So, yeah. Hard disagree.
But that was the thing that I was last night that I was like, Allie, I think you'll have something to say about this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
throw
me and
out the
Allie
man.
live together. Would you rather live with the man, Allie? I
No.
don't think so. Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Hard pass.
Yeah,
Listen.
exactly.
I enjoy my life with my functional spouse, Ginny. It's great. It's fine. We manage.
And then I'm just
We-
here.
We manage.
I don't live with them, but I'm in their life a lot.
That's
That's
true.
true. Yeah, but
We
yeah,
joke-
it's a society thing of just like at least like in general, like the general society is that the man is the ticket out, whether he's the meal ticket or not. No, in Jesse's case, but
Right,
he
but
is
the
the,
ticket out is the most important thing to Jessie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
And, like, because she can't choose to leave because she wouldn't have... You're right, the society, she wouldn't have power. She wouldn't be able to, like, do anything. She wouldn't be able to, like, assimilate into mundane world, really, without a man at her side. So,
Will is back to spiraling. You know, we check in on him briefly and he's spiraling, and I'm just like, I want to give him a hug.
Will's having a bad time.
And Jem
Yeah.
is always the calm, cool, and collected one.
Mm-hmm.
And Tessa goes off on Jem, Will, and Charlotte because she overheard the conversation, as mentioned in the summary, of Will being like, let the not the Shadowhunters, let the Silent Brothers do whatever they want with him, regardless of the consequences.
And thus, we see Will's self-sabotaging behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The reason why Tessa is still at the Institute is because Nate is still at the Institute. So if they get rid of Nate, then Tessa also goes away, and then Will does not have to deal with his problems.
But then you see Will's face drop when he realizes that Tessa is there.
Because as much as Will would like to have us believe that he does not have a heart, he does, and he realizes that he has hurt Tessa
He's got a
very
big
deeply
heart.
by saying these things. And
And
even
then
though
Jem.
he wants her gone, he does not want to directly
Actually,
hurt her.
Jem does what Jem does best and tries to mend the situation.
He
Tessa
does.
like, don't follow me. I am
Te-
leaving.
And then
I
Jem's
wrote
like,
down the
I know
thing,
you
I
said
was
not
like-
to follow you, but I was kind of hoping you just meant Will. And she's like, yeah, I did.
Yeah. I was like, Tessa's having a teen tantrum of, yeah, and then runs off and is like, wait,
Where do I go? I can't go to my
She's like,
room
I
because
don't
it
know
looks like I'm
anything about
pouting.
this.
where do I go? Now what do I do? Ah.
And then we get to the bridge.
Jim is like,
And
we'll go
we
to
will see.
my secret place or whatever.
My
We will-
favorite
we will
place,
see.
he says.
My favorite place.
Yes, my
yes.
favorite place.
Favorite place.
You know, along the way, he teaches her to, see through glamours, but briefly before we start talking about what happens when they're on the bridge, bridges are a thing for Jem and Tessa. We'll see that.
Blackfriars Bridge is the same bridge. It is that bridge.
Mhm. They
It
have a
is
thing for
very,
bridges.
it's very symbolic of their relationship and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It
Anyway,
becomes important in that ship, as it were.
I was like, and let the bridge sentimentality begin.
After the bridge is a thing at some point. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
He starts trying to defend Will and being like, I know he was being rude, but he means well.
Yeah.
And
I wrote
then-
down the quote where he says, where Tessa's like, he lies to you and yet you trust him. And then Jem says, yes, I trust him.
Yeah.
And
I wrote that down too. I was like, he knows Will lies, but he also knows Will must have a reason to do so.
Exactly. And yeah, Jem is just that very earnest person who believes the best in everybody, including Will. And Will kind of takes the opportunity. He shows his best to Jem more than he shows his best to anybody else. And
Yeah.
it's telling that
Jem
Jem trusts him implicitly.
Yeah.
In that way.
and Jem tells us the story that he heard from Charlotte of how Will came to the Institute.
Mhm.
which
does.
It's a thing that is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of contradictory. The whole story itself.
In what way?
Because Jem mentions, how the clave works, and like if you decide you want to leave the Shadowhunter life, you can't contact any of your Shadowhunter family or blah blah, you can ask for help, blah blah, but they still have claim to your children.
Right.
So he mentions
the
that
clave
like
rules that are,
kind of.
Yeah.
It's like the clave will go to their house like every 6 years until or something they're 18 or something like that. Every couple of years till they're 18, to ask if they want to be part of the Shadowhunters. And for the past,
this is the listeners again. Mom, Dad.
No,
the listeners.
I don't want to.
They're trying to steal your children.
They're trying to steal your
Hello,
children.
my name is. I'm
Yeah.
not going to go into it for copyright, but Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And Will had previously turned down twice the invitation to become a Shadowhunter, and then one day he just shows up to the Institute and is like, "I'm a Shadowhunter. You have to let me in. I'm begging you."
Right. After having refused twice. So
right, that's the
there?
part that's contradictory. That's what I'm saying.
You're right. What happened?
Oh, yeah.
What
We
caused
don't
the
know.
very
Will is
drastic?
contradictory.
We don't know.
Be like that.
Will be like that. Yeah.
But something happened. And it's kind of sad because, according to Jem and Charlotte, his parents came looking for him,
Mhm.
and he refused to see them.
He cried
Yeah.
under his
So
blanket
there's
in
some
his room.
sort of trauma there that Will has run away from.
Yeah, Will's running from something, but what? Becomes the
don't
question.
know.
What? We know,
Don't
but
know
we're
yet.
not going to, but we don't know.
We don't
Sure,
know yet, as the reader who has only read 15 chapters of Clockwork Angel and not all of the Shadowhunters Chronicles.
Yeah.
We also have Jem, talk to Tessa about his story.
Yes, we do get about
Mhm.
Gem's story
We
as
get
well.
some family info from Jem.
Shadowhunters deal with a lot. That's all, They deal with a lot.
They
Yeah.
do. Most of them have trauma, and a lot of them die young.
Mm-hmm.
That is the life of a Shadowhunter.
Specifically with Gem's story and his family. His parents ran the institute in Shanghai. And a demon whose relatives had been hunted by these Shadowhunters sought revenge.
Specifically by Jem's mother, I believe.
Yes, specifically Gem's mother.
Yeah.
And so he straps them all to chairs in the Great Room, and he tortures Gem while his parents watch. He injects this venom into his veins that makes him hallucinate, makes him see horrific visions, including clockwork villains storming. I forget that exact line, but he does say something that I'm like, foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And then
I think there was something about like London burning or something too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I didn't write that part down.
But yeah, he says something that's very foreshadowy.
It's the next scene though, technically. When Tessa and Jem are talking about his
So basically they compare Jem's addiction to this venom to an opium addiction, which I think is a really good comparison. Or really any drug, I think, but they specifically compare it to opium, especially because opium has been a problem in specifically China, I believe. So since she's from Shanghai, it makes a lot of sense. And it's just that, you're addicted to, he's addicted to this venom the way drug addicts are addicted to venom. Oh my god! Opium. It's not just you, Jenny. It's clearly not just you.
It's all of us today.
Words are hard.
Yeah. So I think that like as we're Jem's talking about his family and stuff, so I think that's like kind of like part one, but then they get interrupted by this whole clockwork situation,
true.
And then then when they meet up again, it's kind of like this continuation of like, because I'm not sure if Jem would have gotten there.
That's true. He wouldn't have said it on the bridge if they weren't.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have said it on the bridge, honestly.
So on the bridge, they're specifically talking a lot about Will and who Will is, and we're learning more about like what's behind that character. But then they're approached by this other couple who they kind of notice on the bridge, but don't think anything is too odd. Tessa says something along the lines of, "Isn't it a little late for a walk?" And then Jem's like, "Well, they probably think the same thing for us."
Yeah.
This
they
is
kind
like,
of
yeah,
ignore
you're right.
it. But then they approach, and Tessa recognizes
Specifically,
them.
they sort of block their path.
Yes. And then we get the ominous declaration of war, and then Jem attacks, and then, surprise, there's more. And so they just kind of run to the Institute, which proves to
And
be a
Jem
lot
starts to
on
struggle.
Jem's ailing body.
Yeah. I also wrote down that, like, oh, this is another moment where they're like, where somebody's like, you know, like the Magister, they're like, to Quincy, and then
Exactly.
nobody says anything.
Not once is the Magister ever confirmed to be De Quincy.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. Because
Sure,
the
De Quincy
Clockwork
has some sort of
person-
connection to
Yeah.
it all. You know,
Well, we know
and
he's
let's not forget
connected
about
via the, we have that clue in the
Pandemonium
cog.
Club.
And then,
right.
yeah,
That's what I'm
Pandemonium.
saying.
True.
Like the blueprints and all that, and spells. Like he's got some sort of connection to it all. But he's, it's
But we've yet to find
let's
the head,
just
maybe.
say there's starting to be very big doubts about him actually being the Magister.
Yeah. Yeah, that Clockwork, the driver for the Dark Sisters or whatever
The coachman.
was like, yeah, the Magister, and Tessa's like, De Quincy? Or like, you know,
No
or one of them was like, De Quincy, and then
And
no
he's like,
comment.
whatever name you call him, I just call him the Magister or something like that.
Right, that's
Okay.
true. And yeah, this ominous declaration of war. And I was like, okay, but this book is actually like kind of creepy, like in so many scenes.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah,
there's some like dark and like horror movie level.
It's like
shit going
this
down.
girl belongs. This girl, meaning Tessa, belongs to the Magister.
But even, like, the description of the automatons,
The
like,
scenes?
watching them
Yeah.
being slain is, like, really wildly unnerving.
And
It
they've
is.
mentioned this a couple of times, but they specifically mention like the fact that when like Tessa is able to like look down the clockwork mechanical thing's throat and there's nothing there, it's just hollow darkness.
Actually, there's metal plates.
Metal
blocking
plates, I'm sorry.
The, blocking the mouth.
No orifice, just a plate.
No orifice.
Either
Orifices
way,
have been blocked.
it's that's specifically mentioned a few times.
It is.
Yeah.
Which brought me to my interesting text message conversation with Ginny last night.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I was like, not.
I mean, at this point I feel like at this point you have to share it, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
You're not gonna bite. It's fine. You're gonna be like,
No.
Allie, and then it's gonna be fine.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, okay. I don't want. Maybe I don't want to know then. Okay,
Maybe
got
not.
it. Moving
But then,
on.
but, like, yeah, but just like some like even like the, you know, the original warehouse descriptions, and then like the
That was
whole
also
like
really creepy.
vampire
Yeah.
scene with like everybody's just like on fire and screaming and things. It's just like, and then like this whole thing where they fight, and then it's like skin, and then there's like metal, and then like the whirring sounds, and then they look across the bridge, and then there's like several of them, and it's like I imagine that like a zombie moment of like, I
So-
know they're not zombies,
They're
but
basically zombies.
the whole like
Kind
walking.
of are. They like act like zombies.
Yeah.
You know, back to Tessa and Will running. Tessa and Will. Oh my god, Tessa and Jem. I don't know what is wrong with me today. Tessa and Jem running away, and Jem collapsing in front of the Institute doors, and inside the gate. And Tessa, mentions she has this thought of only Shadowhunters, or those with shadow blood, are supposed to be able to open the gates to the Institute. So how did the clockwork creatures get in?
You're right.
And she's like panicking because Jem's collapsed on the ground.
I didn't realize that was.
I don't think it's the gates. I think it's the
gate.
doors.
I thought it was in
Tessa
front of
can't
the
open the
gate.
door.
No, I wrote it down as specifically here. Let me go keep going, and I'm
Let's
gonna look back
double
through the
check
chapter.
it. In my brain, I thought it was happening like right in front of the gate, like she was like banging on the
Right.
to get in, and then so maybe you're right. Maybe they did pass the gate, but and then this like pile converges on Jem, and
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna-
He needs like
I'm
she needs
gonna-
Jem to open the door, but Jem can't open the door because Jem is
I'm
incapacitated.
gonna look because
yeah,
I wrote
and that's
it
something I was like, that's some horror movie stuff right there too. Like just like seeing these things just like descend upon your friend who's like off the ground. I was like,
Yeah, this is terrible.
this is a bad time.
This is right out of The Last of Us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then like looks up at her or whatever, and then there's
Mhm.
like no face. There's just like
Oh yeah.
indentations.
Okay.
That's freaky.
You're right, it is the door. I was thinking it was the gate because she was talking about the gate just before that. How the gate had burst open.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think I
please
just
zoom
thought
in.
that
Ah,
I thought that it was talking about the gate, but she's actually talking about the door to the institute. Never mind.
But then finally, others come out to help, and then are able to slay them, which is also like horrifying.
I wrote down
Yeah,
here, I was
oil
like,
and
is
blood
Charlotte Henry I wrote down, is Charlotte Henry and Will showing up just in time at Deus Ex Machina?
Yes, yes, they are. And yeah, but as competent Shadowhunters, they're able to do the thing, but it's definitely stressful. There's a lot of them.
yeah.
And then later, I wrote this down because I don't even know if I can say this, but you guys will know what I mean. Henry mentions that it's possible that the creatures escaped through a secret tunnel. So you would know what I wrote down
Secret
in my notes.
tunnel.
Exactly. I was like, can I do this
Secret
or is it
tunnel.
copyrighted?
No, it's
I
fine.
was like, is it copyrighted?
Nah.
Nah.
But I wrote that in my
It's fine.
notes. I was like, secret tunnel, secret tunnel.
I
I had a
didn't write it
sensible
down in my
chuckle.
notes, but I laughed at it. Yeah.
I was like, they will know and they will appreciate this.
You will.
It's also
Yeah.
mentioned that the creatures are more sophisticated now than they were when Tessa was rescued. So
Yeah.
someone is making improvements in behind the scenes, is watching and learning.
And that's a problem.
It is a problem. Yeah, Henry being the scientist that Henry is.
Ah, yes. Sophisticated
rather
science
than
man.
the sophisticated science man is able to like, does piece that together pretty quickly of like they're different than when we encountered them before, and they're like, the thing is we he mentioned like they're not quite passable yet for just to like let them loose
To go out
in
during
London,
day, right?
right?
But it's
During the
getting
day.
there.
Which, but the improvement has been made, and we're getting there, and this is about to be scary.
They also don't have demon souls attached to them yet, but that is a thing that they see being worked on.
So like, don't forget that there is a spell for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we see these things becoming increasingly more sophisticated and therefore increasingly more of a threat.
We also check back in briefly with Sophie, because she's taking care of Tessa and being like, you're gonna be no help to anyone if you're exhausted, basically. But she's also very worried about Jem, Sophie. And it basically is revealed that the person that Sophie has feelings for is Jem.
Right. Earlier in this segment, Sophie and Tessa are talking about love and those things. And Tessa has this moment of like, oh, Sophie has feelings for somebody. Is it Will? And Sophie's like,
as if. And then Tessa starts to wonder, ooh, what if it's Thomas?
Exactly. Which,
And
Tessa thinks that Thomas has feelings for Sophie.
Right.
And Sophie's like,
I
what?
wrote-
Yeah.
I wrote down here. I was like, not gonna lie, I could kind of ship Sophie and Jem. Like, obviously, I think Sophie and her endgame are meant to be.
Yes.
But I could see Sophie and Jem being cute.
I could get behind that. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
I think that they're sort of, kind of in that way of like similar people that kind of attract towards each other. They're both this sort of caring and calm. Sophie has her moments, so does Jem. But I feel like they're just very similar.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, there's definitely like the emphasis on like genuine and authenticity versus
what's on the inside versus the
appearance
outside.
thing. Yeah. Which is,
and that's going back to, if you remember that quote that I brought up the very first episode, we when you find a man you wish to marry, Tessa, this is from Tessa's Aunt Harriet.
Yep.
You will know what kind of man he is, not by the things he says, but by the things he does. So that's going back to sort of who you are as a person.
Which is interesting, and I've been keeping that quote in the back of my head on this reread, because I think about how it applies to Will and Tessa versus how it applies to Will and Jem. And definitely, Jem has his moments where he does things to help Tessa. Obviously, we have this moment where like he's taking her out because obviously she needs to just step away from all the craziness, and they go out to the bridge and they talk and do also other fun stuff. But the little actions in which Will looks out for Tessa speaks volumes, especially.
You
keeping
could
that in mind.
argue.
So-
You could argue that, like, him pushing her away after their kiss is, like, an insight into his character. But clearly there's something going on there that made him push her away because his attitude was totally different a couple of seconds before. So it's, like, obviously that's not his actual feeling.
Right. His fear and desperation is out of protection in some way. He's like
Exactly.
desperate to get her away. So it's interesting.
It's a harmful to Tessa action, but it's with good intentions on Will's part.
Right.
Yeah, and like Jem and Tessa, because they have this conversation that we already talked about a little bit, as far as the things that they discuss about how we learn about how like Jem's actual condition and whatever everything that happened to him. And, like there's this moment where there's like trust, like we were talking about that there's like trust between Tessa and Jem. It's just it's more of like an unspoken connection of trust between
easy,
them,
if you will.
Yeah, it is easy, and it's not something that like the first time they met again. Tessa is like, I feel like they talk about this thing where like where Tessa says something about like, oh, I only just met you, but I don't want you to die, and then like Jem's like, I only just met you, but something like that.
He basically says the same sentiment.
Yeah, it's a very quick, like it's a connection that they don't have to like work on in the same way to like have a trust. That's not to say they don't need to work on like a relationship, but
right. And then what Allie mentioned earlier, which is something I didn't think about, but now I'm like gonna go whenever I read, I'm gonna look at it this way. Is Will interrupts it again, as you said, and he says something like, "Don't you think Tessa's gonna want to see her brother?" or something like that.
So it's specifically we've timeline wise we've gone into the Institute and other stuff has happened, but Will comes out to where Tessa is, and he's like he's irritated, he's agitated. Jem's awake, he wants to see Tessa, and like won't answer any clarifying question, just like he wants to see Tessa.
And then, Will just keeps repeating, Jem wants to see you.
Yeah. And so she goes, and then they're all in the room, and then Will's like, well, you should be resting, or something of the effect. And Jem's like, well, if you disagree with it, you can leave.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell her.
Yeah, that's what it is. Jem wants to tell her the whole story because she saw him collapse and do all that fun stuff. Fun stuff.
Which he does.
Right.
I'm gonna tell her. Don't you tell her. I'm gonna do it. No.
Don't do it.
Jem's like, you're not the boss of me.
I'm gonna do it, and if you don't like it, you could leave.
And then he does.
And then he does. And then that's where I wrote the note. Tessa is talking to Jem and is just thinking about how Will's leaving.
Right. But yeah, that's a really interesting point that I'm gonna look at all these Jem and Tessa scenes from now on. Is that
I wrote down, Will interrupts their moment again. Like
and
then he comes back
either
after
Will is on her mind or he interrupts them somehow. That's really interesting.
Tis interesting.
And as she goes to see Nate, but she sees that he is asleep and Jessie is also asleep in the chair next to him still, implying that she hasn't left his bedside all day, which is very sweet.
So I had this moment where Tessa feels bad about forgetting that Nate was healing, and then my note was, it's okay, Tessa, I also forget that you have a brother.
Yeah. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I forget about Nate a lot during these
movies. He's important, but...
Exactly.
Right.
What do you mean plot? I'm here for the ships.
And meanwhile, she's also still in Camille's clothes. She's been in Camille's clothes, all this time. She finally changes out into one of her own dresses. Finally.
It's yellow.
But the next morning, she wakes up, or it's more, Sophie wakes her. And Sophie is frantically, like, trying to wake her, like, Miss Tessa, like, you have to wake up. And Tessa's like, what's going on? And Sophie informs Tessa that Nate has gone missing.
God damn it, Nate.
You've been here for maybe 12 hours.
And, like, Nate has been frantic and not wanting to stay. It is not surprising that Nate has gone missing. The first time that we see him in the Institute, he is flipping out. He sees the silence. He has this idea. He says something about Shadowhunters and whatnot.
That they're killers or whatever. Like, that either DeQuincy or Mortmain told him all that stuff.
And he doesn't like the Silent Brother thing at all either. He's like,
to be fair, I can see how the Silent Brothers, the look of them would be kind of freaky.
I mean, yeah,
They would
they do look
absolutely be
freaky.
And, they don't speak. They speak through basically telepathy. So, like, yeah, it's a little freaky.
It is. Yeah. I get it, but Nate.
But he should also trust Tessa.
Nate.
But Nate.
Nathaniel!
There's a lot of mystery surrounding Nate right now because we found him
Yes.
in De Quincey's, like, as De Quincey's sacrifice. But if we remember back to last podcast, they were talking about him being a traitor to vampires and to the Night Children. And it's like, so what exactly has Nate gotten himself involved in? Becomes the question.
Something that solves the mystery around Nate, but also leaves more questions unanswered, is that Brother Enoch confirms that Nate is a mundane. Totally mortal.
Right.
No warlock, demon, whatever. Yeah.
And Tessa
is still not mortal, and I wrote this down in my note, earlier. Brother Enoch says something about Tessa and her power. Brother Enoch senses a power in Tessa that no other warlock, a power that is not her power of changing.
Oh, yeah, that is a thing that he mentions. It's like, what does that mean?
So we get an answer sort of about Nate, but that just leaves more questions about Tessa.
Well, one of you two is adopted, and we're not going to tell you which one.
Or you're at least siblings. Something's going on. She's like, I don't know, my parents, were perfectly normal people. I don't know how this is happening. And she's just like, not having the best time right now.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be an awkward family Thanksgiving next time. All right, guys? Except for their parents are dead, so.
Well, and Aunt Harriet's also dead.
That.
So really, Thanksgiving is just Nate and Tessa.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, maybe it could be the Shadowhunters, found family, all that stuff. But Nate would not like that, so,
Nate would not.
Nah.
He's very wary of the Shadowhunters because of information he's been given.
Which is interesting. Interesting indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Yeah, this love triangle thing, there's so much more happening too.
We didn't get a lot of the love triangle in this chapter. We got mostly just Will and Tessa.
We haven't gotten a lot of the love triangle in this book. We've gotten mostly just
We haven't gotten a lot of them.
I mean,
all
aside
three
from last
together
week with
once,
the literal
but,
triangle.
Yeah, right. There's not a lot with all three of them. You're right, together, but
we have moments. We don't have. I think it's what it is. We have moments that contribute to the love triangle, but they're not like when it's all three of them together. It's like separate conversations between like Jem and Will, or Will and Tessa, or Will and or Jem and Tessa, that kind of thing.
Even then, we see Will and Tessa together a lot more often than we see Jem and Tessa.
We do.
Which Ginny and I have mentioned how maybe it's a maybe we'll see a reverse in the next book. Maybe we'll
because
see more
this is
Jem scenes.
I would argue. I don't know if I'd argue Will's book, but it's like the one that has him on the cover. So
yeah, I agree. And I've had that thought too. I was like, I wonder if it's not obviously it's meant to be about all the characters and stuff, but if there's some degree of this is Will's book,
because Will and Tessa and Jem and Tessa is such a like debated, at least I think it's widely debated, of who is the better ship.
Listen, the shipping wars were intense before Clockwork Princess came out.
So clearly there's got to be more between Jem and Tessa for it to be so intense.
Oh yeah, and there's definitely there are intense moments in Clockwork
just
Princess
not right now
between them, but yeah, just not right now. Early game is definitely leaning Will heavy.
Yeah, and like I said, I kind of brought up that point of this like, I wonder if there's some, which again we're gonna see it build out because I think that you can't just rely on they have this implicit trust connection.
Right.
And I think that's where we have to start
which
building
is nice,
on like
but
giving real moments.
We don't know much about their dynamic yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. And to me, like Will and Tessa is like this kind of like fire and fire thing or whatever.
Oh, exactly. Every moment
and then like
together is electric.
Tessa and Jem is like this fire and water thing, where it's like, because like Jem is there as like support whenever Tessa has had an issue.
Jem is the emotional support Shadowhunter.
Yeah.
Or
Jem is there to catch when somebody falls, is the thing.
Jem is very stable.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because his health is literally unstable.
It is. It is ironic.
Anyway.
But you're right. Will
Anyone-
has that. Will meets Tessa's fire with fire,
Yes.
which is electric
It's
and a lot more
fire with
interesting to read,
fire.
especially dynamic-wise in the nature of this
And,
book.
you know, as we say, arson is always an option. So,
Would you like some arson?
It is an option. It's an option that
does
Tessa
anybody else
might
have
be picking.
anything they want to bring up? Because I think that's it for my notes.
No, like I said, my notes were a little disorganized this time,
Yeah, me too.
and I was just
I
like,
think we hit on
I don't know what I did. I was just like, interesting conversation, and I didn't say why it was interesting.
I mean,
Not
I think
even
we hit on
there.
most of the. I think we hit on all the important
Oh.
stuff. So,
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
I think we did as well. And it just, we're over halfway through this book, and I feel like
I know.
there's so much more, which I guess that's the beauty of like a trilogy.
Exactly. So we're going to get more.
because-
As I told
Yeah.
you guys, I was like, I feel like nothing's happening in this
Yeah.
bunch of chapters.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot, but also not. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, in this middle section, there's just a lot of like conversation, really, and only a couple like real plot points. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
Which
would be a
means
good
it's
way
all
to
going
put
to
it.
go to hell 2 weeks from now.
In the end. Yeah, it is. It is going to
Very shortly. Stay tuned for that.
collapse and crash and burn, as it will, mayhaps.
As it will, but it's...
But yeah, that was it for me too, I guess.
All right. Well done.
And we'll be back
On the 23rd.
23rd with the
Ooh.
rest of
With
this
the
book,
end
the last
of
5
this book.
chapters.
Oh my goodness. Are we really there already?
We are. So thanks
Wow.
for joining us. If you're listening to this after it's been posted on Spotify or Apple Music or on YouTube, we are live on Twitch every other Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time at the Herondale Boy SG Pod. And you can catch us there, interact with us in the chat in real time, and tell us your thoughts about this book and such.
I am, for anyone who is maybe looking at this archive stream after the fact on Twitch, posting our Discord in the chat now if you'd like to join us on Discord.
Yeah,
But yeah.
we also have a couple social media, so you can catch us on Instagram and Tumblr.
As I
Tumblr!
will
If
also
you like.
put in our Twitch chat. Is it? I don't even know what I remember if I remember the code.
Oh, that's okay.
We never use
That's
it.
fine.
Never mind.
It's fine.
I guess we don't have one. Oh, you know what? I think
Fine.
we still have the individual one.
It's fine. But thanks for hanging out with us. And we'll catch you 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.